This video will serve as an introduction to the mapping tools within NVivo. If you've used previous versions of NVivo, these are referred to as models, so anything that you've seen as modeling before is now a map. We can create these maps by going to the Explore ribbon, and here you'll see there's three icons: the mind map, the project map, and the concept map. A mind map is a manual diagram that you create where you have a central idea and things branching off of it. This can later be transferred into a case or a node structure. Your project map enables you to bring in virtually any element of the NVivo project and any links it has to any other element of the NVivo project. These do not have to be hierarchical. Finally, we have the concept map. These work as a mixture of both a mind map and a project map together. If I start off with the mind map as an example here, so I'm just going to call this mind map. You'll notice any of these maps that you create are saved down map under your navigation view, and then they'll appear here. So you can see mind map is the one that I've just created. So if I double click on this central idea, it's going to let me name it or edit it. So I'm going to call this environmental change. And if I click off, I now have the option of adding child ideas to this or other central ideas. So if I add a child, it's going to be a child of this, so it branches off. So one example of something that falls under environmental change could be natural disaster. And then under here, I'm going to put another child idea, and we could go for human interference. This time, if I click sibling idea, it's basically another idea at the exact same level. So this time I'm going to go for animal interaction. So you can see here you can begin to mind map out different aspects of your project. I can drag these around. It's always going to maintain those connections for me. If I use the contextual ribbon at the top, I can also change that layout into a number of different predefined layouts there. Once I've created something like this, I can highlight the branches I have and click Create as Nodes. And in there I've got the option of creating them as cases. So if you'd done this as a hierarchy of people, I could click in cases and it would save this structure as a series of cases. As this is more thematic, I'm going to save this in my nodes and click OK. And in doing so, you'll see if you go to your nodes, if you look in here, you'll see there's a whole new set of nodes that have appeared as part of that. So if I open up environmental change here, you'll see these relate to the things in my mind map here. So this means you can go out there, you can map things out and then actually move that into your project. So that is the mind map. If I head back into Explore, we can explore a project map, and these can be quite complicated because of the number of things that you can model in here. So if I call this project map and click OK, it's going to create another blank map for me. Now you'll see this contextual ribbon looks very different for a project map. So the first thing that we need to do are add some project items. So if I click on this button, it's going to open up this familiar select dialog and enable me to select things within my project. So one example of this could be going into my cases, and I'm just going to bring in the interview participants as an example. So ticked that, all of those interview participants will now appear in my project, and you can see here they've all branched off of this wider node. I'm just going to delete that for now, so we can see all these individual people that we have. Now what I can do with this kind of diagram, if I highlight all of these people, just down the left hand side of this pane you'll have the option to bring in associated items to this. So it's just loading this up. And when that's done, I can just drag and drop anything across here. So if I go into item coding and let's just bring in one of these economy themes, so agriculture as an example. What this will do is it's drawn a line from anyone whose theme is associated with that case. Let's bring in another one of community change. So this model's quite messy, but you'll notice it quite happily lets you drag and drop things around. It always maintains those connections, so at no point are they going to lose those. If dragging and dropping is going to take too long for it to make sense, you will notice there's some layout options at the top here. So you can do directed style layouts. It doesn't tend to work for this kind of thing. This one over here, the directed lookout, tends to be a little bit more useful, and then I might just need to drag and drop some other ones manually. And then you can see here the people who've just appeared under one theme compared to people who've appeared under both of them, so you can start to see some of the interactions here. There's also this kind of hierarchical layout, and there's also this circular layout, and this hierarchical one's quite useful for this kind of model. So we can see the people who fall under no theme, those who fall under both, and those who fall under just one of them. It's quite interesting when you look here. All of these people who've talked about agriculture have also talked about community change, but there's nobody who's talked about that in isolation without talking about this theme. Could be a coincidence, but who knows. So if I go back into this model and just click on these and press the delete button, so I've just got my participants in here again. This time I'm just going to bring in the relationships. So if I go down here to relationships, just click on this little arrow, you can see all of these different relationships between all of these people and other things that they've looked at. So if I bring all of those relationships into here, I'll just drag and drop them across. See, quite a complicated model is going to result from this one. Completely indecipherable. But once again, if I explore some of these predefined layouts, I can start to see some things that work very well. And if I zoom into this particular model, what this will do is it will show me each individual and the kind of interactions they've had with the areas that they've mentioned. So this is a really popular way of being able to qualitatively show the links between things and to model data, and these can make really useful project outputs. If I did want to put this in Microsoft Word, all I'd need to do is right click here and export the map, and you'll see here you get a selection of popular image formats that you can use for that. If I head back into Explore, you'll see the final map we have here is the concept map. With this blank one open, if I just return back again to my saved maps, you'll notice each of them has a different icon that matches the one in the ribbon at the top. So when you look at the names of these, you can always tell what kind of map they relate to. Now if I go into my project map, you'll see here I've got the similar kind of shapes to what I had in the mind map, but with the concept map I can also bring in project items, so we can do a mixture of both kinds of model with this one. So if I go into the nodes here, bring in a couple of themes, like so, you'll see it's now up to me to make the connections between them. So I can draw from one to the other. It's like a manual mind map, but with your actual project elements in there. And then of course I've got the option of bringing in some of these other elements. I can double click and type in them, like so. Of course this particular diagram doesn't make any sense, but it's just to give you an idea of the kind of things that you can do with this particular map. So if I close all of these, there's just one final kind of map to show you. So if you go back into the Explore ribbon, you'll see under Diagrams there is this comparison diagram. And I know it doesn't say map underneath it, but it is fundamentally a map. So if I click on that, and I go to the one of these options here, so I can compare two sources or two cases or two nodes. So in this case, I'm going to go for cases, and I'm just going to select two people at random. So I'm going to my people, and I'm going to compare Barbara with Margaret, and click OK. So what this will do is it will generate a pre-structured model. I've got Margaret to one side, Barbara to the other. The themes that they share are in between. The themes that only Margaret have talked about are here, and the themes that only Barbara have talked about are here. So this is a really useful way to visually explore something, particularly when you're looking at things that are comparative. There is another kind of automatically generated map that you can access, and that's the explore diagram that we can see up here. However, to be able to utilize this, you need to click on a relevant object. So for example, if I went to nodes and clicked on one of the themes here, you'll see the explore diagram button is lit up. If I click on it, it's going to generate a model that shows that one theme and everything associated to it. So I can see there's a number of different cases, which are these symbols. There's a number of different sources, which are these symbols here, and there's a note there as well. One thing that's important to remember is that a lot of this essentially is double counting. So we've got both Barbara, the interview source, and Barbara, the case here. So it can be a little bit misleading if you took this at face value. One of the interesting things that you can do with this model, though, is I can click on another thing here. So, for example, William. And if I click on Change Focus, what that's going to do is it's going to put William in the middle now and explore the things around him. So with the use of this diagram, I can actually go through and map out and explore my whole project as a map and see how that goes forward. At any point, I can click on the see back as well, and that will enable me to take steps backwards.